The Modular Fun Palace. The reduction in the duration of person-thing relationships brought about by the proliferation of throwaway items and temporary structures is further intensified by the rapid spread of modularism. Modularism may be defined as the attempt to lend whole structures greater permanence at the cost of making their substructures less permanent. Thus, Cedric Price's Think Belt plan proposes that faculty and student apartment consist of pressed steel modules that can be hoisted by crane and plugged into building frames. The frames become the only relatively permanent parts of the structure. The apartment modules can be shifted around as needed or even in theory completely discarded and replaced. It needs to be emphasised here that the distinction between disposability and mobility is, from the point of view of the duration of relationships, a thin one. Even when modules are not discarded but merely rearranged, the result is a new configuration, a new entity. It is as if one physical structure had in reality been discarded and a new one created, even though some or all of the components remain the same. Even many supposedly permanent buildings today are constructed on a modular plan so that interior walls and partitions may be shifted at will to form new enclosure patterns inside. The mobile partition indeed might well serve as a symbol of the transient society. One scarcely ever enters a large office today without tripping over a crew of workers busily moving desks and rearranging interior space by reorganising the partitions. In Sweden, a new triumph of modularism has recently been achieved. In a model apartment house, walls and closets are movable. The tenant needs only a screwdriver to transform his living space completely to create, in effect, a new apartment. Sometimes, however, modularity is directly combined with disposability. This simple, ubiquitous ballpoint pen provides an example. The original goose quill pen had a long life expectancy. Barring accident, it lasted a long time and could be resharpened, i.e. repaired, from time to time to extend its life. The fountain pen, however, was a great technological advance because it gave the user mobility. It provided a writing tool that carried its own inkwell, thus vastly increasing its range of usefulness. The invention of the ballpoint consolidated and extended this advance. It provided a pen that carried its own ink supply, but that in addition was so cheap it could be thrown away when empty. The first truly disposable pen and ink combination had been created. We have, however, not yet outgrown the psychological attitudes that accompany scarcity. Thus, there are still many people today who feel a twinge of guilt at discarding even a spent ballpoint pen. The response of the pen industry to this psychological reality was the creation of a ballpoint pen built on the modular principle, an outer frame that the user could keep, and an inner ink module or cartridge that he could throw away and replace. By making the ink cartridge expendable, the whole structure is given extended life at the expense of the substructure. There are, however, more parts than wholes, and whether he is shifting them around to create new wholes or discarding and replacing them, the user experiences a more rapid throughput of things through his life, a generalised decline in the average duration of his relationship with things. The result is a new fluidity, mobility, and transience. One of the most extreme examples of architecture designed to embody these principles was the plan put forward by the English theatrical producer Joan Littlewood, with the help of Frank Newby, a structural engineer, Gordon Pask, a system consultant, and Cedric Price, the Think Belt architect. Miss Littlewood wanted a theatre in which versatility might be maximised, in which she might present anything from an ordinary play to a political rally, from a performance of dance to a wrestling match, preferably all at the same time. She wanted, as the critic Rayner Banham has put it, a zone of total probability. The result was a fantastic plan for the Fun Palace, otherwise known as the first giant space Fun Palace. Otherwise known, as the first giant space mobile in the world. The plan calls not for a multi-purpose building, but for what is, in effect, a larger-than-life sized erector set, a collection of modular parts that can be hung together in an almost infinite variety of ways. More or less permanent vertical towers house various services such as toilets and electronic control units, and are topped by gantry cranes that lift the modules into position and assemble them to form any temporary configuration desired. After an evening's entertainment, the cranes come out, disassemble the auditoria, exhibition halls, and restaurants, and store them away. Here is the way Rainer Banham describes it. The Fun Palace is a piece of 10-year expendable urban equipment. Shuffle its movable part. Day by day, this giant neo-futurist machine will stir and reshuffle its movable parts, walls and floors, ramps and walks, steerable escalators, seating and roofing, stages and movie screens, lighting and sound systems. Sometimes with only a small part walled in, but with the public poking about the exposed walks and stairs, pressing buttons to make things happen themselves. This, when it happens, and it is on the cards that it will somewhere soon, will be indeterminacy raised to a new power. No permanent monumental interior space or heroic silhouette against the sky will survive for posterity, for the only permanently visible elements of the Fun Palace will be the life support structure on which this transient architecture will be parasitic. Proponents of what has become known as plug-in or clip-on architecture have designed whole cities based on that idea, the idea of transient architecture. Extending the concepts on which the Fun Palace plan is based, they propose the construction of different types of modules which would be assigned different life expectancies. Thus, the core of a building might be engineered to last 25 years, while the plug-in room modules are built to last only 3 years. Letting their imaginations roam still further, they have conjured up mobile skyscrapers that rest not on fixed foundations but on gigantic ground effect machines or hovercraft. The ultimate is an entire urban agglomeration freed of fixed position, floating on a cushion of air, powered by nuclear energy, and changing its inner shape even more rapidly than New York does today. Whether or not precisely these visions become reality, the fact is that society is moving in this direction. The extension of the throwaway culture, the creation of more and more temporary structures, the spread of modularism are proceeding apace, and they all conspire towards the same psychological end, the ephemeralisation of man's links with the things that surround him.